Welcome to Book Summary Podcast, your gateway to personal transformation. Each episode delivers big ideas from the world's most impactful books on mindset, productivity, and success, all in just a few minutes. Ready to turn knowledge into action? Let's get started.
Ever thought you've got your finances, completely figured out, that you're totally rational, maybe a real spreadsheet wizard, always making the smartest moves? Well, what if we told you that some of your most logical money decisions might actually look absolutely bonkers to someone else? Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into a truly fascinating exploration of how our personal histories, profoundly shape our financial present. We're taking a close look at Morgan Housel's groundbreaking insights from his incredible book, The Psychology of Money. And this isn't just about numbers on a page, right? It's about the very human, often surprising stories we tell ourselves about money, a lot of times without even realizing it. Our mission today is really to give you a shortcut to being well-informed about the hidden drivers behind financial decisions, your own and everyone else's. We're honing in on Chapter 16, aptly titled You and Me, which kind of holds up a mirror to our financial selves. It explores this powerful idea that no one's crazy when it comes to money and how our unique life experiences fundamentally alter every dollar we earn, save, and, spend.
So get ready to have your perceptions challenged, maybe gain some serious aha moments, and walk away with a fresh, maybe more empathetic perspective on the complex world of personal finance. Okay, let's unpack Housel's central idea right out of the gate. It seems a bit contradictory at first. He argues that people often do things with money that appear crazy, but crucially, no one was crazy. How can both of those things be true at once? It sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? What's really at the heart of this statement?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and it really gets right to the core of Housel's brilliant observation. He's definitely not saying there are no bad decisions in, an objective sense. I mean, of course, some choices lead to demonstrably worse outcomes. We all know that. What he's really driving at is that when we witness someone making a financial choice that strikes us as utterly irrational, maybe even self-defeating, our first instinct is often to label them as irrational or, even crazy. But Housel challenges us to pause and consider a fundamental truth. Every single one of us has a completely unique backdrop of experiences, a personal financial history that has profoundly shaped our understanding of money.
Right, our own little money movie playing in our heads.
Exactly. Think about it. Your generation, the lessons your parents taught you or maybe didn't teach you about saving and spending, the economic climate you came of age in, was it a boom or a bust? The job market you entered, even pure dumb luck, like inheriting some money or, losing everything unexpectedly. All these factors combine to create a deeply personal, often unconscious, mental model of how money works and how it should be handled.
And that's not just stuff you learn, it's stuff you feel.
Precisely. This isn't just theoretical knowledge, it's visceral felt experience. As Housel puts it so powerfully, what you've experienced is more compelling than what you learned secondhand. It truly anchors your worldview in a way that no textbook, no matter how good, ever could.
That makes so much sense. So if it boils down to personal experience, what are some of the unseen biases or maybe deeply ingrained beliefs that might be shaping our decisions right now, ones we're not even aware of? Can you give us some vivid examples from the source, just to really illustrate how these formative experiences create such different financial realities for people?
Absolutely. The book is rich with them, and they really force you to reconsider what you assume about others' financial logic, or even your own. Imagine someone, for instance, who grew up during a period of rampant runaway inflation, maybe like in the 1970s in the US, where prices seemed to spiral out of control and the value of a dollar just steadily eroded.
Yeah, I've heard stories about that time. Must have been unsettling.
Totally. For them, holding onto cash might feel like a guaranteed loss, right? And debt might seem more appealing because the money they borrow today will be paid back with cheaper dollars tomorrow. Their fundamental understanding of the value of money or the importance of a dollar today versus tomorrow will be radically different from someone who's only ever known an era of stable prices and, moderate economic growth, like maybe much of the 1990s or 2010s.
Okay, so for that second person, saving cash might feel safe and responsible. Completely different instinct.
Exactly. Or consider the stark contrast between a person who experienced genuine grinding poverty in their formative years, maybe consistently struggling to make ends meet, watching their parents stress over every single bill, and compare that to the child of a wealthy banker for whom financial security was simply a given from birth.
World apart.
Completely. Their perceptions of financial risk, the very purpose of money, Is it for survival or is it for growth and opportunity? And how it should be managed will be not just different, but almost incomprehensibly far apart. For one, money means security, pure and simple. For the other, it might mean freedom or status or something else entirely.
Wow. And Housel gives other examples too, right? Like based on specific events.
Oh, definitely. He provides the example of a stockbroker who lived through and maybe lost everything in the Great Depression. I mean, a truly scarring financial event that left generations incredibly cautious about the market. Contrast that with, say, a tech worker who thrived during the dot-com boom of the late 1990s, where fortunes seemed to be made overnight and sometimes really speculative ventures.
Right. Totally different vibe. One sees danger, the other sees opportunity.
Precisely. Their views on the stock market, their risk tolerance, even their belief in the stability of the economy would be almost irreconcilable. One might view the market as this dangerous gamble, the other as a clear path to rapid wealth. He even cites the fascinating case of an Australian who hasn't experienced a recession in over 30 years, which is incredible compared to the cyclical American experience, where economic downturns are a regular, albeit painful, part of life for most of us.
So you're saying even nationality plays a role in this subconscious financial programming?
Absolutely. These differing experiences lead to equally smart, well-intentioned people disagreeing profoundly on fundamental financial concepts. Things like what causes recessions, what are the optimal investment strategies, what's their personal risk tolerance, or even what truly constitutes financial security. It really emphasizes that our personal history is our most powerful, albeit entirely subjective, teacher. It's baked in.
That's a truly powerful and honestly often overlooked point, isn't it? It suggests that our rationality is almost entirely a product of our past. Housel really drives this home when he says, your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works.
That statistic just jumps out. 80%. That's huge.
It is. It's not just an abstract idea. It has profound practical implications for how we interpret financial news, how we perceive market events, and even how we gauge our own risk appetite. We might read countless books, articles, or, listen to deep dives like this one, learning about historical economic crashes or booms.
We try to be informed.
Right, but that intellectual understanding, the detached academic knowledge, it rarely, if ever, translates into the gut-wrenching emotional impact of actually living through it.
Yeah, reading about a storm isn't the same as being in it.
Housel makes this point so vividly with that anecdote about John F. Kennedy and the Great Depression. When JFK, who came from this incredibly wealthy family, was asked about what he remembered from that era, his response was striking. He famously stated he had no first-hand knowledge of the Depression because his family, rather incredibly, actually prospered, becoming even wealthier during that time.
Wow.
Yeah. His learning, he said, came until I read about it at Harvard. No first-hand knowledge. That's a stark reminder, isn't it? It means even someone as brilliant and informed as JFK was shaped by a completely different financial reality than, say, someone who was actually standing in a breadline back then. How profoundly does that distinction between simply reading about history and really living through its emotional crucible impact our ability to truly empathize with financial decisions that differ from our own? Or even to accurately assess risk for ourselves?
Oh, it's an absolutely crucial distinction. And Housel highlights that no amount of studying or open-mindedness can genuinely recreate the power of fear and uncertainty. You just can't simulate it. We can read countless accounts of people losing everything, of market crashes, of hyperinflation, but we don't carry the emotional scars that those who live through it do.
That makes sense. The memory feels different.
It does. That visceral experience shapes their understanding of risk, security, and opportunity in a way that mere facts or statistics simply cannot. It's the difference between hearing a story and feeling it deep in your bones.
So that leads to a really interesting, maybe slightly uncomfortable question. How much can any of us truly learn from history without having lived through its emotional highs and lows ourselves? Are we just doomed to repeat mistakes because we didn't feel the last crash?
Well, the source makes a powerful case that individual investors' willingness to bear risk depends on personal history. Not intelligence, not education, not even financial sophistication, but often just the dumb luck of when and where you were born.
Dumb luck. That's humbling.
It really is. Take Bill Gross, for example, the famed bond king. His entire illustrious career, during which he achieved immense success and built PIMCO into this investment giant, coincided almost perfectly with a generational collapse in interest rates.
Yeah.
Decades of falling rates.
Okay, so bonds were good to him.
Very good. For decades, bonds were basically wealth-generating machines for him and his clients, reliably producing income and capital gains. It made perfect sense from his lived experience to favor bonds heavily. That was his reality.
But not everyone's reality.
Exactly. His father's generation, who likely endured periods of high inflation, maybe in the mid-20th century, might have viewed bonds as wealth incinerators.
Because inflation ate away their value.
Right. Because their lived experience taught them that rising prices steadily eroded the real value of fixed income investments. So imagine the psychological chasm between those two perspectives. They're both intelligent, presumably successful individuals, but their financial realities shaped fundamentally different views of the exact same asset class.
That's fascinating. And you mentioned data backing this up. Based on birth year.
Yeah, Housel provides some really specific data points that illuminate how birth year can dictate financial perspective, almost like a pre-programmed setting. Consider someone born in 1970. During their impressionable teens and 20s, they basically witnessed an almost unprecedented bull market. The S&P 500 increased nearly tenfold, adjusted for inflation, between roughly 1982 and 2000.
Wow, tenfold. That's massive growth.
Astonishing, consistent upward trajectory. It shapes a very optimistic, maybe even fearless view of the stock market. For them, ideas like buy the dip and stocks always go up in the long run might feel like immutable laws of nature. It's all they knew growing up financially.
Okay, so that's the 1970 cohort. What about someone earlier?
Now imagine someone born just 20 years earlier, in 1950. Their teens and 20s, say from roughly 1965 to 1985, coincided with what Housel describes as the market going literally nowhere, adjusted for inflation.
Nowhere. Really?
Literally nowhere in real terms. It was a period of stagnation, high inflation, stagflation, general economic malaise. For this person, the stock market might seem like a giant casino, a place where you're just as likely to lose as you are to win, or maybe worse, a place where your money just sits there, losing value to inflation year after year.
So completely different mental models of the market.
Completely. These two groups, separated purely by the chance of their birth year, go through life with profoundly different views on how the stock market works, what it's capable of, and the level of risk it entails. It's no wonder they might offer vastly different, even conflicting advice on investing, right?
Absolutely. It makes total sense now why financial advice can seem so contradictory sometimes.
And it's not just stocks. Think about inflation itself. If you were born in, say, 1960s America, inflation during your impressionable teens and 20s sent prices up more than threefold. That leads to vivid, potentially scarring memories of gas lines, skyrocketing interest rates, paychecks stretching less and less far. The threat of inflation feels very real, very personal.
It's a tangible fear.
Whereas if you were born in, say, 1990, inflation has been relatively low and stable for most of your adult life. It's probably never crossed your mind as a significant immediate threat to your wealth or purchasing power. It's more of an abstract concept.
Yeah, definitely less of a daily worry for my generation, I think.
Right. These differing yet equally persuasive experiences fundamentally shape our financial behaviors and expectations. They color every single money decision we make, often without us even realizing it.
It's incredible how much of our financial worldview is built on these foundational, often subconscious experiences from our past. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. A point that truly challenges our assumptions about what constitutes rational behavior. Housel presents this striking example that might initially make you scratch your head, but ultimately illustrates this point about differing realities with incredible clarity. The phenomenon of lottery tickets. What's so striking about how we as Americans spend on these, especially when we consider the points we just discussed about personal financial histories, because the numbers are frankly mind-boggling.
They really are, and this example is a profound moment in the book for many readers, I think. It really makes you stop and think. Americans, astonishingly, spend more money on lottery tickets than on movies, video games, music, sporting events, and books combined.
Combined, wow. Just let that sink in. All those other things dwarfed by lottery tickets.
Yeah. And who buys them? Overwhelmingly, it's poor people. The lowest income households in the U.S. on average spend a staggering $412 a year on lottery tickets.
$412.
And that's 4 times the amount spent by those in the highest income groups. 4 times.
Now, here's the paradox that seems utterly crazy to many of us who might prioritize saving or financial planning. Housel points out that 40% of Americans cannot come up with $400 in an emergency. Which is to say, the people buying $400 in lottery tickets are Often the very same people who tell you they couldn't scrape together $400 in an emergency. That seems completely bonkers to me, and I bet it probably seems bonkers to many of you listening as well, right? It just goes against every principle of prudent financial management we're taught. Save first.
Right. It feels illogical. And this is where Housel asks us to truly, genuinely try to step into their shoes, to imagine their narrative. Because if it seems crazy to us, there must be an underlying, deeply human logic from their perspective.
Okay, so what's that logic? How does he frame it?
Housel articulates their reasoning so powerfully, forcing us to completely flip our perspective and consider the profound emotional landscape that often drives decisions which, on paper, seem utterly illogical. He channels their perspective, which might sound something like this. Quote, "We live paycheck to paycheck and saving seems out of reach. Our prospects for much higher wages seem out of reach. Much of the stuff you people who read finance books either have now or have a good chance of getting, we don't. Buying a lottery ticket is the only time in our lives we can hold a tangible dream of getting the good stuff that you already have and take for granted. We are paying for a dream, and you may not understand that because you are already living a dream."
Wow, that hits hard. Paying for a dream.
It's such a poignant observation. It really underscores how rationality can sometimes be a luxury, can't it?
Yeah, definitely.
For some, the emotional value of that momentary hope, that tangible dream, vastly outweighs the statistically minuscule chance of actually winning, precisely because the alternative feels like, well, like an emotional void, maybe?
The day-to-day grind without that glimmer of hope.
Exactly. It's not about the cold, hard odds on a spreadsheet. It's about the feeling of possibility in an otherwise potentially bleak landscape. It's about buying hope, even if it's just for a day or a week.
So it's an emotional purchase, not a financial one.
Absolutely. And this perspective, while Housel is quick to note, it's not an endorsement of buying lottery tickets, because, as he points out, buying lottery tickets when you're broke is still objectively a bad financial idea. It reveals a deep emotional and context-driven rationale, a rationale for decisions that appear utterly irrational if you only look at the spreadsheet. And it connects to a broader truth that many financial experts, maybe even us sometimes, often overlook. Few people make financial decisions purely with a spreadsheet. They make them at the dinner table, when they're discussing their hopes and fears with their spouse, or maybe in a company meeting where ego and pride come into play.
Yeah, real life happens.
Real life happens. These are places where personal history, your own unique view of the world, ego, pride, marketing, odd incentives, they all get scrambled together into a narrative that works for you in that moment.
So thinking about this, listener, what stands out to you about this example? It encourages us, I think, to approach financial decisions, both our own and others, with a much greater sense of empathy and understanding, recognizing that everyone's narrative is different.
Definitely. And maybe ask yourself, how many of us in our own lives pay for something purely for the emotional comfort or aspirational feeling it gives us, even if it might be irrational on a pure cost-benefit analysis?
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Right. Maybe it's that expensive coffee every morning, or a subscription service we barely use but keep just in case, or even that brand new car we didn't strictly need but really wanted. It forces us to acknowledge that our own logic is just as susceptible to emotional and experiential influences as anyone else's, even if those influences manifest differently for us. We're all human.
That's a profound thought that really humanizes finance, which can often feel so cold and detached. Yeah. So if our personal pasts shape us so profoundly, how does that play out in our modern financial world? Especially when so much of it feels, well, kind of new and unprecedented. Housel really drives home just how recent many of our bedrock financial concepts truly are. What does this all mean for our current financial landscape?
Well, he argues that many of the financial ideas we take for granted today are surprisingly new, which means we often lack deep generational historical experience to guide our behavior. We're kind of winging it.
Winging it? Like what specifically?
Well, take retirement, for example. The entire concept of being entitled to retirement is at most 2 generations old in the U.S.
Really? Only 2 generations?
Roughly. Before World War II, the expectation and the stark reality for most Americans was simply to work until they died. This idea of a distinct leisurely retirement phase, supported by savings and social programs, it's a very modern construct. It's not something our great-grandparents worried about in quite the same way we do.
Okay, so the concept of retirement is new. What about the tools we use for it?
Exactly. It's not just the concept. The book goes into detail about the astonishing newness of several critical financial instruments that we now consider mainstays, almost ancient pillars of our financial system, but they're not.
Like Social Security. That feels pretty old.
It was established in 1935, sure, but initial benefits were minimal. Housel points out it wasn't until the 1980s that average checks for retirees actually exceeded $1,000 a month when adjusted for inflation.
The 80s. Wow. Okay.
For decades before that, it was more of a basic safety net than a primary retirement income source for most people.
Yeah, the 401k. That feels like the bedrock now.
The absolute backbone savings vehicle for American retirement, the go-to for millions. Yet it didn't even exist until 1978.
1978. That's younger than a lot of people listening.
Exactly. Think about that. It's barely older than some of our listeners. And the Roth IRA, even younger, not born until 1998.
So if the Roth IRA were a person, it would be barely old enough to legally drink.
Precisely. These aren't ancient tools steeped in centuries of accumulated wisdom. They're brand new inventions, relatively speaking. And this lack of long-term societal experience with these tools fundamentally shapes how we interact with them, how we feel about them, and maybe how poorly prepared we often feel to truly master them.
That really raises an important question then, doesn't it? How are we expected to navigate these increasingly complex financial landscapes without centuries of accumulated wisdom or deeply ingrained societal norms to guide us?
It's a huge challenge. And it's no wonder that Housel concludes, many of us are bad at saving and investing for retirement. We're not crazy, we're all just newbies.
We're newbies. I like that framing. It takes some pressure off.
It does. We simply haven't had the time as a society to develop a collective understanding, shared best practices, or a cultural blueprint for how to best use these relatively new tools. Our parents and grandparents often didn't have to figure out asset allocation in a 401k. Many had pensions managed by their employers. That was the norm.
Right. The responsibility has shifted.
Massively. Now, the burden of investment choice, risk management, longevity planning, it all falls squarely on the individual. And the psychological weight of seeing your 401k balance fluctuate wildly with market volatility without that generational memory of repeated recoveries, well, it can be immense and incredibly anxiety-inducing for people.
Yeah, watching that balance drop is tough. In college, that feels like another area where things have changed dramatically.
Hugely. College planning is another huge source of financial stress for American families today. Housel notes college tuition has quadrupled, adjusted for inflation, since 1940.
Quadrupled after inflation.
Quadrupled. This isn't just a slight increase. It's a dramatic, exponential explosion in cost. And the modern student loan issues, the widespread student debt crisis impacting millions of American households, they're direct consequences of this rapid, unprecedented shift in educational costs and financing models.
So, again, no historical playbook for dealing with that.
Exactly. There simply isn't a long-standing playbook or cultural wisdom for dealing with such dramatically changed realities. Our parents probably paid a tiny fraction of what college costs now, and their parents even less. We're all trying to figure this out in real time under immense pressure.
Are there other examples of this kind of financial newness?
Oh, absolutely. They abound throughout the book and our economy. Think about index funds.
Yeah, everyone talks about index funds now.
Right. They're ubiquitous, often recommended as a sensible, diversified investing strategy, but they're less than 50 years old. Before Vanguard's first index fund launched in 1976, this wasn't even an option for the average investor. Hedge funds, too, often seen as symbols of sophisticated high finance investing. They didn't truly take off and become a major market force until the last 25 years or so. Relatively recent players on the grand stage, even widespread consumer debt, things like mortgages, credit cards, car loans, only truly boomed after World War II, partly fueled by the GI Bill, which made borrowing more accessible for millions of Americans returning home and looking to build a life.
Before that, debt was viewed differently.
Very differently. Before that, debt was often seen as a moral failing, or at least something to be avoided at almost all costs by prudent people. Now, for better or worse, it's an accepted, even sometimes necessary, part of our modern financial lives.
So, taking all this in.
Yeah, so when you, the listener, feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of financial advice out there, the myriad of options for investing, saving, borrowing, and the constant pressure to make the right choices, this historical context helps us understand why we're all, to some extent, navigating uncharted waters.
Right. We're all kind of financial explorers on a new continent.
That's a great way to put it. Your challenges aren't necessarily a sign of personal failing or a lack of intelligence. Often, they're a reflection of a financial system and a set of expectations that are still evolving incredibly rapidly, without that deep historical foundation to guide our way. It's a system that asks individuals like you to make highly complex decisions, often without the benefit of accumulated generational wisdom.
Which hopefully fosters a certain amount of empathy
Mhm.
for ourselves and for others struggling with these modern financial dilemmas.
Exactly. Give yourself and others a bit of grace.
Wow. What a truly fascinating and deeply insightful deep dive into the you and me of money. We've really seen how our individual histories, our deeply personal experiences, and even the sheer newness of many modern financial tools create unique and often perfectly logical reasons for the decisions we make, even if those decisions appear crazy or baffling to an outsider looking in. It's such a powerful reminder that finance isn't just about math or algorithms or cold, hard data. It's profoundly about people. It's about emotions, history, and those often invisible forces that shape our everyday choices. And reinforcing that main takeaway from Chapter 16, understanding that everyone, including ourselves, operates from their own unique financial narrative, fosters immense empathy. It helps us avoid judgment, not just of others, but maybe of ourselves too, for past mistakes. And most importantly, it encourages us to look inward at what truly drives our own money choices.
Yeah, understanding the why behind the what.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the invisible scripts from our past that might be shaping our present financial self. And that gives us the power to understand and perhaps even consciously rewrite our own financial stories going forward.
Indeed. Appreciating this psychological complexity is absolutely crucial for navigating your financial life effectively. It's really about recognizing that truly effective financial management isn't just about knowing what to do, though obviously that's important, but critically, it's also about understanding what happens in your head when you try to do it. Why do you procrastinate on saving? Why do you panic sell? Why do you chase hot stocks?
Understanding your own triggers.
Precisely. This deep dive reminds us that there's no single right way when it comes to personal finance, no universal spreadsheet that dictates perfect behavior for everyone. There's only what makes sense given your own journey, your unique history, and your individual circumstances and temperament. It's a powerful call for self-awareness and understanding for both ourselves and others in this complex financial world.
Okay, so as we wrap up today, here's something to think about. If our personal histories so profoundly shape our financial views, and our rationality is often, as we've seen, a product of our past, how do our collective emotions, especially the negative ones, sway the market and our individual decisions?
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah. Why do we as humans often find bad news so much more compelling, so much more captivating than good news? You see it everywhere. And what does that inherent bias mean for our financial outlook, our investments, and maybe our overall sense of well-being?
The magnetic pole of negativity.
Exactly. Next time, we'll peel back another fascinating layer of the psychology of money to explore the seduction of pessimism. You might be surprised at how deeply hardwired we are to focus on the negative and what that does to our money mindset. Join us next time on The Deep Dive as we continue to uncover the hidden forces that shaped our relationship with money and help you become truly well-informed.
Thanks for tuning in to the Book Summary Podcast. If you found value in today's episode, hit that like button, subscribe for more summaries, and share it with someone who's ready to grow. Want deeper insights, exclusive book notes, and reading tips? Join our free newsletter. The link's in the description. And don't forget, if you'd like to read the full book, our affiliate link is right below. It helps support the channel and keeps the summaries coming. Until next time, keep reading, keep growing.